Hello friends, and welcome to Flosstube and Variety Show number, I think 41. It's funny, I meant to look at that right before I turned on the camera, but forgot. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's 41. Today is April 29th, 2022. I'm Emily Williams in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Thanks for joining me today. So Flosstube, because it's about cross stitch, and Variety Show, because it's about something else. And we will, both of us see, all of us. Hopefully I have more than one viewer, but probably only one at a time. So you and I will see together what the Variety Show turns out to be, because I might not have it firmly fixed in my mind. Just a note about last week's video. Thanks to so many of you for watching and for subscribing. I passed 100 subscribers by 1 or 2 since last week's video, and that's fantastic. I actually said in last week's video that I was pretty sure YouTube offers some perk or something that 100 subscriber people get to use, and I don't really know what that is yet, so hopefully it'll be something that benefits all of us once I figure it out. But anyway, thank you for subscribing. Those of you who are new subscribers, welcome, and new viewers, welcome. Very happy to have you along for the ride. Let's get going on cross stitch. So I have made a little progress on Flea Market Flowers. I've been working on this section right in here. I had hoped to get into this big flower in the middle, but I didn't. But, you know, progress a little bit at a time. I did finish all those 4 little flowers on the outside, which are very cute. And this actually brings me to a topic which I am very interested in, which is color. And the fact that that brownish color in the middle there is a shade of red, actually. And that's one of the reasons it goes so nicely with the red and pinkish colors in the flower. And that shows up, that same color is the color that's the borders, these little X borders, and it shows up in this big flower down here. It's a darker version of the color that's in this, I think. Maybe it's the same. But anyway, that's one of the reasons that looks so nice together, and I do like that. So, Flea Market Flowers, making progress. I'm going to show you, I haven't made progress on this piece this week, but I'm going to be working on it, I think, this weekend. This is Sweet Summer Come Again, and as you recall, I'm working on this one right here. I already made that one. This I'm working on, but I don't think I'm going to make it into a cylinder. But we'll see. But I really like it. I like it so much that I would like to be able to see all of it at once. So here is my current state on it. This I work on the first weekend of every month for Blackbird Design Weekend Stitch Along, which has a hashtag BBD Weekend Sal. And I did all of this in, I think, 2 weekends. I think it was 2 weekends. And it's hard for me to show you what is left, but there's a strawberry there. There's some more viney thing, and there's some little doodads. I don't know what those things are called. Coins, bosses, I'm not sure. A few other strawberries and an initial. And I think I have a plan of what I'm going to do with this, and we'll just see how that unfolds as time goes on. But I have enjoyed that. I'm probably going to work on it this weekend. It's hard to say. Is this the first weekend of May? Because May 1st is Sunday, or is next weekend the first weekend in May? I think technically this is, but there are no BBD Weekend Sal police out there, so maybe I'll do it both weekends. That could be. What do you think? This is Sunflowers by Monet, charted by Cross Stitch Obsessions. Let me say, I own 5 of these little patterns. If you look back in some previous video in the 20s, you'll see I showed a lot of them. I am really enjoying this. This is 3/4 done or something. And I know it doesn't, I mean, it's beginning to look like something. This is small enough I can show the 2 things at the same time. It is beginning to look like something. I could hardly make myself put it down. One of the reasons is because it's so small, you complete all the stitches in a color really quickly. The colors I have left, I think the most number of stitches I have is around 90. Well, 90 stitches is half an evening's work for me, or less, maybe a third of an evening's work, depending on what it is, of course. But anyway, this is very close to being done, I feel. We'll see. I don't want to make any promises because that's crazy, but maybe I'll have it finished next time I show you. And then I am going to show, I'm about to show you the purple sampler, which I'm using this book as one of my main sources. Ultimate Sampler Motif Source Book by Brenda. And I'm going to show you because last week I had shown you this little bird over here. Whoops, this is quite long. I have this, I've tacked it, put some little stitches in down here to hold this roll because it's so long it gets my way. And anyway, last week I had this little bird and I had stitched his little legs and his beak in a brownish color, which one of my viewers remarked didn't really show up. And I thought that too. I thought it was possibly too dull. And so I stitched it in a brighter color this time. And I added another little bird who has some legs and a beak in that brighter color. So I think it definitely shows up now in that color. Even from farther back, you can tell it's not purple or green. And the question is that the right color? Is it, I mean, still. So let me just show you. So in this little packet, by the way, these little zipper pouches, and they come in all kinds of sizes. I love them. That's what I use for all my projects. I put my floss, I bobbinate normally on folded index cards that I just write, you know, here's 550, that's the main purple color. I just write the number up here. And because I have floss from decades ago also that I still use, I've taken to writing the year of that I wound this bobbin on here so that I'll know, is this new floss or is this old floss? Sometimes the dye lot has changed or it's subtly different from year to year, and it depends on what project it is, whether that matters to me. For this particular project, I got all new floss. So I do have these colors in old floss in my older collection. But so this is the color I use. This is 3853. So that's the color, the new color. But I just thought I'd show you for interest's sake. These were the ones that I was choosing between. And when I picked, let me just be sure. There's one missing. No, this is it. When I picked these colors out, sorry, this is so, should have thought through how I was gonna hold this up. When I picked these colors out, when I was choosing something to go with to be the beaks and legs of birds, I picked these ones. And then I thought, you know, I should pick one that is way outside those colors just to prove that these are right. And so I picked this one. And then when I stitched it, I actually used this one, I think. No, this is the one I used. This was the one that was too dark. And this is not the darkest. I mean, this one is probably the dullest, darkest one. This is the most like the green, that olivey green one. So having stitched that and discovered it was too dark, I thought, well, let me go to the brightest one that I picked. And of course there are brighter oranges in the DMC line, and there are probably some colors, maybe a lot of colors in between. It may be that when I have finished this whole sampler, I'll go back and say, the orange is not right, and I'll change it. In both, not in all cases, but it's fairly easy to remove stitches to make a change. I'm using 18 count Aida. It's pretty easy to get my little tiny scissor point very carefully under the top thread and snip it, and then use tweezers or the needle or something to carefully ease out the stitches that I'm removing. By the way, this is a little gadget. Can you see that? Yes, I think so. This is a tail tucker or something, I think it's called. I bought it from an Etsy shop, which I can probably figure out where I got it. Man, I'll put it in the description box. It's a little whale tail, but this is brilliant. So it's very hard to tell. It's even hard to tell when you're using it, but it actually separates. It's two little tiny pieces of metal, which I'm sorry, I can't make it show. I can't show that really. Maybe you can possibly see it. Anyway, you slide this under existing stitches. I use my needle to ease the tail of my thread into this thing, and then I pull it through those stitches, and then you sort of have to wiggle it around to get it out, get this out, and then you have your tail of your thread that you can snip off. And that is how I bury my threads if I have left too little, or in this case where I made a correction. I am actually, what happened was I'm working on this bird. You know, this is counted cross stitch, remember? So one has to be able to count. So I counted, looked at my little chart of this bird, and I counted the distance between his little orange foot and where the beak goes. And I finished the feet, which are just four stitches in orange. And then I counted up and put the beak on. And I did a little stitch, can't remember what it's called. Anyway, I did a little stitch that involves making little tiny stitches underneath the cross in order to lock that stitch into place, because it was out in the middle of nowhere. There was no place to put a tail. And as I was making that, I was thinking, boy, I'm glad I won't have to rip this out, because this will be tricky to get out, because I've done this little pin stitch is the term. And then I started stitching the bird, the purples, and realized that the bill was in the wrong place. So I did actually have to get that out. I was able to do it with care, even though it was a pin stitch, but I ended up with a 1/2 inch or a little bit less 1/2 inch tail that needed to be anchored somehow, or I would have had to take the legs out and start over, which of course I could have done. It wasn't that many stitches. But with the help of this handy little deal, I was able to tuck that 1/2 inch tail under stitches in the body of the bird. So this is a handy gadget. Many of you probably already know what that is, but I learned about that by watching YouTube channels, Flosstube, so I've hopefully passed on some helpful knowledge. So here's where this stands, here's where this stands so far, and hopefully I will have some more decisions made about what comes next and make more progress over this coming week. So I'm not going to show Under the Roof of Blue Ionian Weather today, because I did do quite a bit of stitching, but again, as I've said before, when things are, that is so gray, so much of it is gray or really similar shades of cream, that I find it hard to even demonstrate to you what I accomplished. So one more thing I'm going to show you is this piece, this chart. Adam names the animals. Hold that up pretty close because it's a fairly small picture, but you can see this is by Plum Street Samplers, and there is a tree, and then there's a giraffe and a zebra and a bunch of animals, a lot of animals, and there's fish down here in the water, and a verse. This is out of Genesis a part of a verse or a whole verse. Really pretty. And I bought this back last summer probably because I thought I would stitch it, because I really do like it. Now I will say a lot of the verse is over one, and a lot of the animals, either they are over one or parts of them are over one. For instance, the giraffe here, I just think this is amazing. Here's the giraffe standing on the ground. Here's a tree, and then here's his head way up there. The head is... So that's kind of weird. My camera just cut off. So I think I was just saying that it's beautiful. Plum Street does beautiful designs. But I have realized since I purchased it that I am not going to stitch this. And so, in honor of passing 100 subscribers, I'm going to give this away to one of you. So if you will make a comment below and use the word zebra, here's a zebra. If you use the word zebra in your comment, then I will select a winner and announce it on next week's video. So anyway, thank you again for subscribing. So some rules about giveaways some of you may not know. Don't use the word giveaway, don't use the word free in your comment, because there are bots that go through YouTube comments looking for those words, and then they, I don't know what they do, but they mess it up somehow. They mess up the giveaway. Again, don't know how. I don't know how that works, but that's what I've heard. Don't use those words. You need to be over 18 for you to give me your mailing address. And if you are the winner, then I will work out how you can give me your mailing address, and I will mail this to you, and I will mail it anywhere in the world. So any of you is eligible if you live on Earth. If you are from another planet, then this giveaway is not for you. Sorry. So anyway, that you can have that and you can stitch it. And if you do stitch it, I would love to see the finished product. So that is what I wanted to show you in cross stitch land. And now I am going to pause the video because I left something I wanted to talk about over on the counter. So one moment. Okay, I'm back. I think I mentioned on a previous video that back in 2020, my church got going on making cloth face masks. As you may remember, if you are from Earth, you probably do remember that there was a shortage of face masks, manufactured ones, at the beginning of the pandemic, and yet they were recommended. And so it was hard to figure out how to solve that problem. And our church developed a ministry of making masks, and I was actually the organizer of that, and I also made a lot of masks. And one of the ways I contributed to that, besides soliciting people, recruiting people to make masks, people who had sewing machines and had some basic skills, is that I bought fabric and I cut it into the mask shapes, and I bought elastic and cut elastic into the mask shape, into the proper lengths, and created little kits. And most of the fabric that we used was solids because it was less expensive and it was more universally accepted by potential recipients of these masks. You know, a solid fabric will go with more things than a print fabric will. And also, you know, there just aren't very many masculine prints out there in quilt world. We used 100% pre-washed cotton fabric. So I got to know Kona solids by Robert Kaufman and love them. I love them. So I was working, as I mentioned last time, on that project for my friend, excuse me, leaning out of frame, where we agreed that she could pick colors for the quilt by sending me the names of the numbers of DMC floss, and then I could use the floss to match colors in fabric. So here's the color she picked. If you really have a great memory, you might remember that these are slightly different colors than what I showed you last time because she's changed her mind. But I think we're settled on these. And I bought an amazing thing. This is a color card that shows actual little fabric squares of all of the Kona solids. And I can hardly hold this up because it's so big. There are 365 colors in here. And this card, I mean, it goes on and on and on. Isn't that just amazing? I mean, this is so fun. Even if I were never going to make a single item out of fabric, this would be fun to have. And so now my task is to take those floss things and match them up, you know, hold them up to the different colors and figure out which one is the one that's the match, that's the best match. And I think it's good. I mean, the other option I had given her for telling me what color she wanted was to go to Sherwin-Williams, a nationwide paint store, and pick paint chips that matched. But it's probably better to be using fiber to match fiber. Although, I will say that exact matches do not exist for every single one of these. And it's hard to tell if it's because of the color or if it's because of the slight sheen that floss has compared to woven fabric. But I think I'll be able to do a very nice job matching that, and we'll soon be working on some mock-ups of the design that she's chosen, which is a tumbling blocks. But anyway, that color card is astonishing to me. Love it. Now, another thing that I've been working on is I put a backing and a binding and a hanging, a rod pocket type thing, I think that's what you call it, on an antique quilt that my brother had. He mailed it down to me a few months ago, and I, in the past several weeks, have gotten around to working on it and am about to send it back to him. And it's such an interesting, intriguing quilt that I'm putting up some, while I'm talking, you will be seeing some pictures of it. It's just such an interesting old quilt. The fabrics in it are not they're not even probably any cotton. They're possibly wool. Some are wool, I'm pretty sure. Silk, I think. They look to me, I would say that they are ladies' suits or skirts and possibly blouses. That is what it looks like to me. This fabric feels like. And it's old enough that some of the fabric has decayed. There's a certain amount of dry rot and so forth in it. So whoever made it, I don't know who made it. My brother may know who made it, but I don't think he does, because I think he would have mentioned it when we were discussing the project. But whoever made it did foundation piecing, and these are log cabin blocks in their basic style or basic design, but they are made of fabric that was folded, so it is all pleated. It's three-dimensional. And because of, I don't know why, because of technique or the type of fabric or whatever, the blocks are not flat, but that's all right. What I did to anchor it to the backing fabric, I decided it was too heavy to put batting in, and it's not really intended to be a bed quilt. My brother wants to hang it on the wall, so I didn't want to make it heavier by adding a layer of batting, so I just put a backing on it, and I just stitched roughly next to the edges of the blocks, not in the ditch, because I would have put too much pressure on the actual seam, which the whole thing, by the way, as you can imagine, hand done, every stitch hand done. And she, I'm assuming it was a woman, because back in those days, only women really did this kind of sewing. She basted her pieces down, and then she stitched them to the foundation fabric on the back. And one of the pictures shows the back of the quilt laid out, and you can see those squares. That's a muslin type fabric upon which, so I guess that's 100% cotton, upon which all of the rest of the fabrics were stitched. And she stitched mostly with black thread, some with cream colored thread. She didn't try to match the thread because you can't see where the stitching is, because the way it's folded, the next piece of fabric completely covers the stitching of the previous piece. And then she stitched those blocks together by hand, but she basted the pieces down to start with as she was stitching them, and most of the blocks have basting still in. So I took the basting out. I've been taking the basting out. It's very tricky. It's very delicate. Some of those fabrics have not held up over time, but I have done that, and I'm about almost done with putting the rod pocket on the back, so I'll be sending that off. And hopefully at some point my brother will send me a picture of it hanging on the wall, and hopefully it works. And it's been interesting, but I won't say it's been fun working on that project, because it's a little bit, it makes me nervous to be handling something that has some deterioration going on in it. But I'm doing what he wishes for, and he'll be able to enjoy this quilt hanging on the wall much more than he would folded up in a bag. So I feel good about that part of it. I'm just a little nervous about my actions with regard to the quilt. The Hippocratic Oath does not apply to quilts. I do not first need to do no harm. And in fact, in some of the stitching and trimming of the edge, I have trimmed off some parts of the fabric that the creator originally put on there. But it's quite a dramatic piece, as I think you'll agree, seeing the pictures. But working on that reminded me of my husband's grandmother, Granny Fay. I've mentioned her before on the channel. She's one of my heroes. She would be 102 or 103 if she were, or 112, I think, maybe, if she were alive today. I believe she was born in 1910. She died when she was about 97 or so some years ago. But I knew her long enough to have really enjoyed her, and I mentioned in the previous video that she taught me tatting, lace making, and other things. And my inspiration for making quilts comes from her. Anyway, one of the things that we have are quilts that she made for us. And when I was up in the room looking at this quilt of my brother's the other day, I thought, I'm going to take some pictures of these quilts that Granny made and show them to you, because they're so charming, really. They are not sophisticated. They are 100% hand sewn and hand quilted, except that she had a friend put the binding, machine stitch the binding to the front of the quilt, and then she turned the binding over and hand stitched it to the back, which is how I do it too, except I don't have a friend do that. I do it myself. But so everything's by hand. All the cutting, all of the stitching and everything is by hand. And so she made, for my husband, she made this pair of quilts, the little Fisher Boy quilt, which she made for him when he was in high school, and then Sunbonnet Sue that she made for us the year we got married. That goes with it. So those two quilts match. They're a pair, and we put them on a pair of twin beds that we have in one of our guest rooms. In our guest room, our only guest room, really, because the other room is our son's room. That is a guest room, technically, but it's his and his wife's when they come. So I think of it as Scott's room. Anyway, these two quilts are very charming. She went to she made excellent selections on fabric, coordinating fabrics for the little outfits, and we enjoy them very much. And the embroidered labels on them are they're just very special, aren't they? And in one of the, in the picture that the Sunbonnet Sue on the bed, you can see the butterfly pillow that she made, which is another beautiful piece of work. She did that one probably in the early 1970s, when she was in her 60s. So she was about my age, probably, when she made that pillow. But she was a remarkable person, and somebody I very much admire, and appreciated her craftsmanship in so many of these things. Not sophisticated. She would not have won any prizes at any fairs, probably even her local fairs, but made with a real eye for color and color placement and love for her family. So that is all I have to talk about today. And I hope that you will find some time this weekend to do some nice cross-stitch work. Maybe you'll be part of the Blackbird Designs Weekend Sal stitch along this weekend, the first weekend of the month. If you want to communicate with me, you can use Instagram. That's probably the best way. You can find my whatever handle down below in the description box. I always put in the description box as much information as I can reasonably collect about anything I show or talk about. So you can look down below if you want more information about anything. And don't forget, use the word zebra in your comment if you would like to have a chance to receive this as a giveaway, as a gift from me to you. So that's all for today. Many blessings to you, friends.